Welcome to Inspired Business Media. Today I'm joined by Leia Mills, Head of IT and Business Systems at Satellite Applications Catapult. Leia, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm really excited to learn a bit more about you and dive into your career. So let's give our listeners an insight into who you are and what you do. Start us off by telling us a little bit about yourself and your career to date.
Okay, so I suppose compared to maybe some other people, I'm quite new to IT. So I didn't really come into it until about 10 years ago. And before that, I was doing administrative roles. So I suppose from a starting block to where I am now, it's gone pretty fast.
Amazing. Great. So talk to me a little bit about your roles before where you are now. Kind of, you said you're fairly new to the technology sector. And you said you did kind of administrative roles beforehand. So what was kind of your first role in technology?
So I was working as an administrator management information. And one of the things that we used to do was pull reports out. And it was just drag and drop using like little squares of information. I didn't know what they were. They were just little squares that I dragged and dropped and it built a report. But you'd press the play button, and when you went to press the play button, there was all this sort of writing, and I discovered that it was SQL. Okay. I was fascinated by it, and then we had a bit of a situation at work, and I was tasked to try and find a solution for it, and put sort of like a query out on this internal forum I worked in education, so it was like an internal forum for help, and somebody came back to me, and I discovered what SQL was, how tables worked, how you got data out of databases, and I was just fascinated by it. And and I suppose from there, that was where I was thinking, this sounds like amazing. And then I was given an opportunity to apply for a job as a database administrator, and that was it then. You could say that was the start of everything.
That's really interesting, because I feel like the kind of traditional narrative is, oh, I did maths and science in school, and then, you know, someone in my family was working in STEM or whatever. So it's really refreshing to hear that kind of you were on your career path, and then something sparked that interest, you know, kind of not in the traditional way. I think we sort of think that, you know, a lot of us decide what we want to do when we're very young, or when we're, you know, teenagers or something like that, and then that's what we do forever. So that's really refreshing to hear that you made that switch, and also you've been really successful from it as well. Really interesting.
Thanks, Miriam.
No worries. So obviously you said you're fairly new to technology, but starting about 10 years ago, so you've been in it for quite a while, you know. Anyway, what has been the biggest challenge you faced in the past sort of 10 years, would you say, in your career, and how did you overcome it?
I think it's coming into it with a sort of zero knowledge. I mean, a lot of the colleagues I was working with, like you say, they'd done IT at college and university, or they'd been tinkering around with computers since they were 5. And I remember when I first started looking at SQL, and then somebody said to me, you know, what else would you like to get into? I just had absolutely no idea, because it was like this vast sort of subject area as far as I was concerned. So I think the biggest challenge for me was knowing where to start, and also trying to absorb as much information as I possibly could in the shortest period, because I felt like I just didn't know enough. And actually, I still feel like that today. You know, I don't know enough. I wish I could have that thing in the Matrix where they plug it into the back of your head and you can just upload loads of things. So it was, for me, at the very start, and I suppose continuing, it's about, you know, trying to get as much knowledge as I can, so that I can support people in the best way that I can, understand, you know, the latest things that are happening. Mm-hmm. So I think when you come at it later and you're surrounded by peers who've been doing it since they were kids or teenagers, you sort of feel a little bit like, okay, I need to catch up.
Yeah, definitely. I'd say that's true for kind of any industry coming into it later. I mean, myself, you know, I've you know, had jobs that aren't within, you know, business or events, and coming into that and kind of being brand new, the shiny new thing, trying to dive into the industry, it is really difficult. That brings me on nicely to my next question. Obviously, starting the way you did in technology with having not much knowledge is an achievement in itself. But what would you say has been the biggest achievement in your career, or an event that you're most proud of so far?
That's a difficult one. I think I suppose there's a couple of things. Since I've been working in the IT sector, I've caught up in a sense that I've completed a IT and computing degree, and then I've gone on and done a master's as well, all whilst working full time. But I think some of the biggest achievements is watching people grow. So when you become a leader, you want to see that you're doing a good job, and you can realize that the way that your teams respond. And at my last place that I worked, the team went from 21 to about 40. Wow. And we were not necessarily known as the greatest team in our business. And when I left, we really were one of the greatest teams. And just to see people working alongside you, buying into your vision, and all of those things, you feel like you're actually achieving something, and that you're helping them to achieve things as well. And I think that's what makes it, that's what makes going to work every day much more interesting than just saying, oh, I work for this company and I do this every day.
No, yeah, you make
people.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to get on to kind of leadership in a second, but I just wanted to touch on the fact that you've completed a master's while working full time. First of all, congratulations. That's an amazing achievement. How did you manage kind of balancing that and being in a demanding full-time leadership role at the same time?
I think when you decide to do something, any sort of study, when you're working full-time, you've got to commit to it. And you have to realize that you probably will lose your evenings and your weekends. And on those really sunny weekends, like we've just had this weekend, it's liable that you could be sat in front of your laptop working away. But I think it's that goal. You decide to do something, there's a reason that you've decided to do it, and then you just keep that always in front of you, because I think it's awful if you start something, and I mean, everybody's circumstances are different. And even when I did my first degree, I took a couple of years away from it. I did a degree through the OU, and I had to take a couple of years out because of different things that are happening in my life. But I went back to it. And I think if you can just keep that goal in your sort of sights, and that's where you want to be, it can just keep you moving. But you have to acknowledge that probably not going to be able to go out on the weekends and go out in the evenings and make the most of some of the weather sometimes, because you've committed to doing some study. And I think if you can get your mind around that, then that's brilliant. And also, if the business that you're working for can support you, sometimes they might let you have a half day every now and then to catch up with a little bit of work. So yeah, that's always helpful. So if you are thinking of doing some study, have a chat with your boss and see if you can get a little bit of time, because that's always quite helpful, even if it's just 2 hours.
Well, I guess it's only going to benefit them in the long run. Wow, you're upskilling just in a different way to kind of training within a company. It's going to benefit then, and it's going to pay dividends to you as well. Studying while you're working is just going to make you even more of an asset to the company you work for. That's really great advice. And again, congratulations for that, because I know people that have done masters while working, and it's not a walk in the park. It's very, very tough. Like you said, you give up your free time, and a lot of people around you have to be very understanding of that as well. So yeah, congratulations again.
Thank you. I'm glad it's done now and I can enjoy the weather for as long as it lasts.
It's paid off. So you've had various leadership roles within your career so far. What would you say are kind of the pillars of what makes a good leader?
I think that you should be you as a person. I think if you treat people the way that you want to be treated, I know that sounds really simple, but you know, you're not dealing with children, you're dealing with adults, and they know what they're there for. And they're looking to you for guidance and leadership. That's your role. Yeah, there are times when you might have to manage a situation or manage a person in terms of their, you know, their work or whatever. But if you're in a leadership role, they're looking to you for guidance. And I just think if you're yourself, you treat people as you want to be treated, and you are always there to support them, I don't think you can go too wrong with that. I think it becomes difficult when you lose sight of that. You know, if you become a bit dictatorial or a bit micromanagey or those sorts of things, they can put people off. You want people to work with you and for you. So if you can inspire that sort of commitment within your teams, it just makes being a leader so much easier. And you know, and then you achieve so much because it's all about teamwork.
Yeah, absolutely. That's wonderful advice. And you say it's simple, but I think a lot of people forget, you know, they're so focused on success and maybe targets or whatever it may be, that they forget that they're working with people that are ultimately going to make them better, make their team better. So going back to basics and just thinking, right, how would I want to be treated in this situation? How would I want to grow within this role or whatever? It's really important.
Yeah, really. Definitely.
So as we know, the technology sector is still very much male dominated. I'm just wondering if you've faced any challenges as a woman being in such a male dominated sector.
I think you can't get away from the fact that it's still male dominated. And when I did my master's, there was only me and one other woman in my class. If I attend conferences, it's probably 90% men. But I think it's important not to allow your gender to define you. I think if you focus too much on, personally, I feel if I focus too much on being a woman, it could limit me. It could then make me think, oh, maybe I can't do that. And that's not how you should approach anything, any industry whatsoever. You know, there are men who are the smallest minority in other industries, aren't there? So, you know, it works both ways, but there will always be challenges. Some of those will be perceived, you know, perhaps by me. You know, like I said, you know, a lot of the colleagues that I worked with had been tinkering around with computing since they were 9. And they were male colleagues who'd been doing that, whereas I'd been playing with my Cindy dolls, you know. So, you know, naturally, we had a different background, but you don't want to allow that to stop you from feeling like you can also achieve. And I think the fact that my career has sort of gone quite quickly from being a database administrator, or not even being a database administrator, but from starting from scratch, I suppose, up into being a leader in the industry, just shows that, you know, there will always be challenges, but you know, just don't focus on the challenges, focus on where you want to be. And I think that's the most important thing.
Absolutely. That's really great advice. What advice would you give to technology leaders on how to bring more women into those tech leadership roles? I mean, obviously it's such a big problem, maybe coming from, you know, education, not having that kind of visibility in education for girls to think that, okay, I can go into that role. But yeah, just wondering if you had any advice to technology leaders on how to bring females into those key roles.
I think if possible, if you can grow your own. So look within your own teams and see, you know, whether you've got any female colleagues that, you know, might want to achieve and move forward in their careers in tech, but maybe feel that they don't have the capacity or aren't sure, or feel like it's not for them because maybe all of their colleagues are male and it's something they're not sure about. So I think definitely to try and you know, look within your own companies, and women who are in leadership roles to help other women as well move forward with their careers. So where I've just come from, my head of operations was female, and I made sure that my succession plan was her.
Yeah.
Because it gave her the opportunity then to step into my role when I left. And I think as a female leader, when you're recruiting, being aware that often women won't apply for a job if they can't tick everything that's on the list. So maybe think about the way that we write job adverts, job descriptions, and also use our networks to reach out to people, to encourage them to maybe apply for a role, or if they've thought about a role. And, you know, even if it's something that you don't have everything for, I say be brave. Maybe just apply, because you never know. I was coaching somebody, actually it was a man, and he said, I won't apply for a job if they say I need a degree. I said, but you've got 10 years worth of experience, you know, and I think it just goes back to that, you know, not limiting yourself, and just trying something and being brave.
Absolutely.
And yeah, people in industry like me, I can help other women. I can help grow my own. And that's what I tried to do in my last place, where I had a bigger team, and I did have some women in my team. And yeah, just, I'm not sure what else really at the moment. I guess that's my only thoughts.
No, that's wonderful advice. And I think that's really practical advice as well. Yeah, fantastic. And I think you mentioned something interesting there about how we write job adverts, and being very, very specific. You'll always see that on job applications, like, you know, you need a degree in this field or a related one. And 9 times out of 10, people don't have that and can do the job just as well, or learn just as well than anybody else. I mean, you're a prime example of that, you know, coming into your role a little bit later in life, you know, not having, again, that kind of traditional narrative. If you had maybe limited yourself, you wouldn't be in the position that you are now.
Yeah. Oh, I nearly didn't apply for the role.
Did you?
Because
not?
there were so many things on the list that I felt like I couldn't do. But I spoke to a very good friend, and they said, they just took it away from me, and they said, can you do this? And I was like, oh yeah, I could do that. I've done and sort of, and it was just the way it was worded. And after I spoke with a friend and we went through it, I suppose, put it into plain English, I realized that there were quite a lot of things on there. So yeah, it really is important to, if you're seeing a job and you really like the idea of it, just go for it. Maybe even phone up the recruiting manager and have a conversation with them.
Absolutely.
But yeah, or, you know, bounce an idea off a friend and try and boil it down to actually its constituent parts, because there'll always be things written in there and you think, I have never even heard of that. And a 2 example is, when I once applied for a job, there was something in there. And after I got the job, I asked the hiring manager, so what is this then? And they went, oh, I don't know. It was just in the job description when I got given it. So.
Well, if there's anybody listening or watching that's thinking, shall I apply for that job? I'm not sure. Apply for it. What's the worst that can happen?
Exactly. What is the worst that can happen? You get a no. But, you know, we all get turned down for jobs all the time, you know, just be brave.
Absolutely. You've given some great advice so far, Leah. The last bit of advice that I would like to get from you is, if there's anybody out there, you know, females or whatever, that are looking to move into technology, perhaps there may be young girls or women that want to get into technology, or maybe they're women that are already in a different career and quite established but want to make that move. What advice would you give to them to kind of step forward and make their way into a career in technology?
If it's what you love, then don't let anything hold you back. When I was 19, 20, I really liked computers, and I thought I'd quite like to get into IT. And at the time I was thinking maybe like an IT service desk role. But all my friends that I knew worked in IT were boys. So I thought it was a boy job. And it took me a long time to realize it wasn't a boy job. It's a job. So, you know, if you're interested in how things work, or you just like playing around with the computer, or you just think it'd be something you'd be interested in going for, just go for it. You know, reach out to someone that maybe you know works in the industry, try and get some work experience. You know, just see what it's like. And don't be put off by whatever age you are, because you can always start again.
Absolutely. Again, brilliant advice. Thank you very much. So I just wanted to move on to the industry that you're currently in. What are the kind of biggest challenges in your industry at the moment, would you say?
Okay, so I'm still quite new to this sector. So I'm in the space and satellite sector, which just sometimes blows my mind about how I'm even working in this sector. So we're looking at, how satellites can really support the future of the world, really.
Mm-hmm.
So just small challenges. How satellite technology can help with climate change, food shortages. There was a piece in the paper not that long ago about a satellite that we helped launch that's helping with debris that's out in space. So yeah, the challenges that I suppose we look at is, what's happening in the world and how can we use space technology to help support that. So yeah, maybe not your normal ones.
No, definitely not. I've never heard an answer like that before. It's really interesting. Do you have any exciting projects coming up that you're able to share with us?
So I suppose just to be transparent, my team are not the rocket scientists, although secretly maybe in our hearts we'd like to be, or we're not necessarily the satellite engineers, but we support all of those parts of the business that do those things. And I have to be careful because I know that there are some things that I can't talk about, which I never thought I'd say before, because normally it's just, yeah, they were doing this. But there, what can I say? I suppose the things that are coming up that are exciting are just things where satellites are going to be helping with. We've got something called Living Labs,
okay,
which is where we're using satellite technology to help with the healthcare. So if people are in an ambulance, instead of the doctor having to wait for the person to arrive at the hospital, they can use satellite technology where the doctor is able to see through almost like a visual that and be able to look at the person, see their vitals and all that sort of thing to help them before they actually arrive at the hospital. So that's something at the moment. I probably said it all wrong, but what I will say is to go on our website and have a look at the Living Lab stuff that we're doing, because it's just amazing, really amazing.
Fantastic. That's so interesting. And it's great that you're kind of going to be, integral to that technology coming about. That's really, really fascinating. So what would you say is next for your industry, and what kind of future trends and innovations do you see?
So I suppose it is just what we sort of briefly talked about, and that's how we use space and satellite to support, the human race and all the different things that, all the challenges that we have at the moment. I mean, for me also it's around that cybersecurity piece, how we're still keeping people safe so they can do the jobs that they need to do. Mm-hmm. Being able to access data really quickly for different things. We have a lot of Earth observation data that's used in projects, so satellites looking at how the Earth moves, maybe the way that the landscape is changing and what that means for farms or water supplies, or we're looking at, how to resource the renewable energy. So yeah, it's obviously I'm not doing all that by myself.
It's pretty impressive to it.
But I suppose it's, we're just part of that industry, we're part of that business. So everything we do supports that. I suppose it's a little bit like what that man said who cleaned at NASA, and he said, he was a cleaner, but they said, what are you doing? He said, helping to put the man on the moon. So I think, and I think that's really important, actually, if you work in IT and you work in a business. Sometimes you're not the most technical department, and certainly in my current company, we are not the most technical department in the business, because we really do have rocket scientists. But it's about making sure that those people can do their jobs and that the technology is ubiquitous but discreet and doesn't cause them hassle. So yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're integral to everything. Without you, it wouldn't get done.
So, well, not me.
Oh, thank you so much, Leah. It's been an absolute pleasure to chat to you. It's been really interesting. Thanks again.
Thank you.